Welcome to Under the Microscope. This series is brought to you by the Real Scientists Nano team. Our goal is to provide a platform where scientists can communicate their work and interact with the public. With that in mind, every week we introduce you to a scientist working in the field of materials and nanoscience, who would be curating the RealSci_Nano Twitter account.
Hi everyone. Today we have with us Servet Ozdemir, who is a postdoctoral research associate at the Institute of Photonics and Quantum Sciences at Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh, Scotland. Hi Servet, welcome to Real Scientist Nano Under the Microscope podcast series. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks.
Awesome. Let's start by understanding your career journey so far. So please tell us how you got to where you are, a postdoc in Edinburgh.
So I grew up in east of England from 13 onwards, but I was born in Turkey and lived there until I was 13. So during my school years in England, I have built a big interest in physics, and I ended up taking physics as my undergraduate subject at University of Warwick. And during my final year at University of Warwick, I ended up becoming really interested in two-dimensional systems and the physics displayed by these two-dimensional systems. And at that point, I made a personal discovery about graphene and how graphene, in a sense, revolutionized the ways of studying two-dimensional phenomena in comparison to traditional semiconductor heterostructures structures that are also utilized to study this physics. So for my PhD, I got my studentship from Graphene Nano Center of Doctoral Training at University of Manchester, which I was very happy about because that's where the home of graphene is, and basically, having obtained my PhD studentship from there, I was fortunate enough to carry out my research under the PhD studentship of Professor Sir Konstantin Novoselov, who was co-awarded the Nobel Prize 2010 for his discovery of graphene. And I finished my PhD in September in 2020, so just this past year. And following on from there, I moved to Heriot-Watt University in Quantum Photonics Laboratory of Professor Brian Gerardo. And since October 2020, that's where I have been, and I'm currently remaining in the same field, but working on different projects to what my PhD was, essentially. So my deep enthusiasm for physics from school days took me all the way up to here, I guess.
That sounds amazing. From school to now, you're somewhere the other way doing physics and gathering knowledge on physics and using that knowledge for so many different things. And you have worked with some incredible people. Of course, I mean, the Nobel laureate for graphene, I think 2010 in physics, that's where Andre Geim and Konstantin, they got the Nobel Prize, right? So that sounds really amazing, really, really inspiring, I must say. So your current work, I'm assuming there is some physics involved there. I mean, you did speak about that a little bit in the short podcast, but where does your current work fit in this big picture of materials or nanoscience? Because it's quite a broad field, right?
Yes. Exactly. So I think the most important aspect of it for the field of nano and material science is that we just have an incredibly incredible number of potential of 2D materials. So graphene was the first one, and now we have, I believe, at least 100 of them identified, isolated, and studied to different extents. But there are predictions that basically suggests up to 2,000 materials
Mm-hmm.
that can possibly be generated, made, and studied. So I believe, and each of these materials in principle um, in principle display different properties. And I believe sometimes the physics we discover in the lab while trying to work out this new material and what it might display, the certain properties that comes out of this material is actually potentially a huge application in the field of nanoscience and nanomaterials in general, which is
Mm-hmm.
why graphene moved away from a solid state physics, being a solid state physics celebrity material, to, even applications in bioengineering nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that it has a huge interdisciplinary aspect, and the research we do in the lab has potential implications quite often on chemistry, biology, and nanoengineering in general too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it does put things in perspective, at least in my head, from whatever little I know of materials or nanoscience. It does help to understand where does your research fit, your current research fit. And it sounds really cool. I'm really excited to read your tweets and see the pictures and images and what you're going to talk about, how you're going to explain it. I'm really, really looking forward to that. The survey, I'm pretty sure you have your current research, as I said, is super interesting. But it sounds to me that you have been involved in a lot of very, very interesting research projects throughout your career. And I know this question is a tough one. If you have to pick one research project that you're most proud of, or the
Yes.
most fun or quirky one, could you pick one and explain it to us in simple words in the section we call In Other Words?
Yes, so I am most proud of my contributions into first ever systematic investigation into rhombohedral graphite films.
Okay.
So graphite, which is basically in pencil leads, comes in two structural forms. One is hexagonal and the other one is rhombohedral.
Mm-hmm.
And rhombohedral one is basically a topological insulator in
Mm-hmm.
thin film limit, and it is basically an n-layer generalization of graphene.
Mm-hmm.
And during my PhD, and especially writing up my PhD thesis, which I dedicated to my experiments on rhombohedral graphite, I have basically found out that in low energy limit, it is an n-layer generalization of graphene.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it is also accompanied by three-dimensional transport effects. So it basically acts as a quasi 3D system
Mm-hmm.
and displays some of the physics that's displayed in graphene in 2 dimensions in 3 dimensions, despite being a very, very thin film system. And yeah, basically, I am very proud of it, and it was my thesis. And recently, I have been awarded a prize for my thesis, which I'm sure you've heard of, Springer Thesis Prize. So
Mm-hmm.
hopefully, it will all be out as a monogram book as well soon,
Oh
that
my
I can
God.
share with everybody. Yeah, I would
Oh my
say,
God.
yeah.
Congratulations. And I can imagine why you picked this as the project that one of the projects that you're most proud of, because yeah, that definitely sounds super interesting. Wow.
Thanks.
Must be. Do you still remember the feeling the first time you uh, got the results that you were hoping to get or expecting to get, or was it like
Yeah.
completely unexpected? Like, whoa, what is this now?
Yes, yes, yes. So, when I first started working on the project, I I immediately realized, even though I was a fairly new PhD student, I immediately realized that there was a huge prospect and potential, because there were lots of theory papers talking about rhombohedral graphite and the interesting physics associated with it, like
Mm-hmm.
magnetism and superconductivity, but the
Mm-hmm.
experiments weren't actually there. And actually, I think one of the first samples we have made gave these very, very fascinating results.
Mm-hmm.
And first, I immediately thought that it was some kind of an artifact, as it often is doing
Yeah.
science. But later on, we measured more samples and we realized that it was true. And obviously, this was a very big project with a huge number of people involved. But I would say, yeah, I was very happy, and it was a great moment, especially as a reasonably early PhD student. I would say, yeah, the lucky moments in science are always, yeah, they're good memories.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Wow, that sounds amazing. And I hope you will talk more about it when you're taking over the account, Real
Yes,
Scientist Nano account. Yeah, absolutely. All right, awesome. So, Survey, I mean, it's clear to me that you love the research part of being a scientist, but there are also other aspects or other responsibilities or tasks or whatever you call them, which come with being a scientist. So, what else do you like about being
absolutely.
a scientist other than the research itself?
Yes, I really enjoy teaching aspect as well, especially so being able to, I mean, doing research, we deal with a lot of fundamental concepts and we have to think about a lot of fundamental physics and being able to take that physics away and show it to undergraduate students and actually tell them, look, I know that this immediately doesn't make sense now why you're necessarily learning about this, but here is a really, really nice application of it. And this is why it is really important that you grasp these ideas like quite clearly. Like for later on stages, it can help you quite a bit. I think I really enjoy teaching because I really care about, especially teaching my field, solid state physics, which is something I have done this year in Harriet Watt. I care about it and I want to make sure that things are introduced in a proper way because I feel like a lot of students can be put off even research, like specific research field, just because they don't receive the right,
Guidance.
yeah, yeah, and right, they aren't introduced with things in the right way. I would say teaching is amazing, and also moving away from academia outside, just meeting people in general public immediately when you tell them that you're a researcher, you get this like huge respect from people. I think that aspect of research, obviously, we could be way more paid in other jobs and elsewhere, but I feel like just being able to get that is it matters the most to me as well as the other bits. Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Okay. Well, it's good to know that we have active researchers like you who do enjoy teaching and who enjoy that process as well, because that's also very, very important, right? To bring the next generation, train the next generation of scientists. That's
yes,
what you would be doing. So it's great that you like that and you enjoy that, because that means that your attitude and your positivity is then translated to the next generation and like passed on. And if the teacher is happy, students are happy, everyone is happy in this equation. So that's really nice. That's really nice to hear. So what advice would you give, Survey, to either yourself or to researchers who are starting up today?
I think the most important advice is that it is not certainly easy. I would say I would tell them be patient against difficulties, and that you have to be willing to put a lot of effort into things because things don't work immediately. It takes time, and sometimes you have pressure just because you're competing with other groups and etc. But at the end of the day, it is beautiful and it is amazing, the science that we're dealing with. So I would say patience is probably the most sound advice. At the same time, hard work. Yeah.
Okay. Hard work and patience is very, very important pieces of advice. Thank you for that. Survey, I hope your research experience has been wonderful so far, and it sounds like it has, and I hope it will continue to be wonderful in the future as well. However, if you had three wishes to improve your research experience, what would you ask for? And I'm not promising anything here, okay?
So, as we discussed already, I work with atomically thin crystals, and I know we haven't mentioned yet but the way to make these atomically thin crystals, the most sound way of making them right now is basically using tape and putting two pieces of tape together and separating them and making crystals extremely thinner and thinner.
Yeah.
And I would say a lot of my life and my time is spent searching for very, very thin crystals. So having a magic tape that just immediately makes them and makes some very big crystals would be really nice. Other than that, I spend a lot of time trying to make good contacts to these semiconductors, basically to be able to study the electronic transport effects. Be nice to have an easier way of making them. And I think lastly, anyone who has published a paper would know that that you have to put through a fight. So I would say, well, maybe this is a bit of a controversy out there, but nice but fair referees. Just maybe getting rid of that referee too, that always seems to cause troubles.
The
But I
review at 3, I think, right? The referee
it,
3.
yes, it varies, but yeah.
Okay, well, all 3 very, very fine wishes, very practical, I must say, and
Yes.
not out of the world at all, except the third one, probably. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I hope we do have better ways, more reproducible and less tedious ways of making the thin materials, the two-dimensional materials, other than the Scotch tape method,
Yes.
which got the Nobel
Yeah.
Prize, but not
Yeah,
sustainable, not reproducible, I would say.
absolutely. And I think that is probably something to definitely we should get more people interested in 2D materials from general nanomaterials and nanoscience community, because I feel like a lot of us guys are very, very fundamental physicists, and because it produces the most high quality systems, we are, I think if it's only physicists who keep doing graphene and 2D materials research, we will always be stuck with Scotch tape. So I think
Yes.
we need more applied scientists in just trying to improve things and making these crystals, definitely.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, that is, yes. I hope people are working on it. I mean, there is quite a lot of headway made for graphene, right?
Yeah, yeah. There is a
It's
lot of progress, but I feel like it's just there is a lot of room to improve too.
improve. Yeah.
Uh, Definitely. Having said that, there is already an immense number of groups doing it. Yes,
Yeah,
I should.
absolutely.
Yeah,
But also for other 2D materials, it would be nice to have that scalability and
yeah, exactly.
reproducibility and
Less
production.
so, less so in other materials that
Yeah,
compared to graphene. But yeah, yeah,
absolutely. And also your second wish about easier ways of making the contacts, because I know it's a nightmare. I
yes,
remember that being a nightmare to make the contacts of these super thin, super small flakes as well. And then I wish there was a way to IBM, other companies, if you're listening, we need that on academic level, not just on industrial level.
exactly.
And also with the referees or the publishing the work being more fair and more nicer.
Constructive. Yeah,
Constructive, that's the
yeah,
word. Yeah,
that's the word.
that
Yeah.
is the word. Absolutely. Well, I hope all 3 of your wishes come true very, very soon, especially the first and second, because those you could use in the lab right now.
Yes.
So that would be amazing. So, Servet, this has been wonderful speaking with you. But one last question before I let you go
Yes.
is, well, we lived through quite an interesting year that was 2020,
Yeah.
and also living through an interesting version of 2020, which is 2021. So, what are your learnings from these times?
Yeah. I would say being in the middle of the pandemic and being stuck at home in isolation quite often gives somebody the time and opportunity to, you know, in my case, it was my thesis, go back to foundations, understand things, and like put my thesis together and look through my data again, analyze things, look at them in a very calm way, and notice things that wasn't immediately obvious, come up with new experiment ideas. So I guess my most important learning is just no matter what situation you are in, just try to make a good use of your time, and there's always things to do and things to improve on, and brush up on understanding of things. And I guess it was. And then 2021, I think again it highlights the importance of science, how much the vaccinations are changing our lives already and will help a lot on the way to becoming normal, and how new research is shedding light into the policies and the practicality approaches that the governments should take. I think it's been 2 years that it's been a couple of already in 2021 too. It is highlighting the importance of science in our lives and how basically we can't sustain ourselves without it, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we can't sustain without science. That's a very positive note and a hopeful note, optimistic note to end this podcast on. So thank you very much, Servet. This has been wonderful. I learned a lot of new things about your science, about you. It has been fantastic, and looking forward to having you on Real Scientist Nano.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. To know more about us, please visit our website, realscientistsnano.org, and follow us on Twitter at realsci_nano.